is kind, loving people and having boundaries. I love the way it looks right after it snowed. Everything looks fresh and clean and new. It's January. It's the beginning of a whole new year, and it's our opportunity to begin again, fresh and clean and new. We've learned from last year's mistakes, and Jesus invites us to move forward in his forgiveness so that we can start again. Whenever I am starting something new, I think it's important to go back to the basics, right? And to get my priorities straight so that I know the direction that I'm heading. So let's go back to the Bible and find out what Jesus says is important. Hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, the Pharisees got together. One of them, an expert in the law, tested him with this question. Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. This comes from Matthew chapter 22, verses 34 to 40. So this is it. This is our foundational commandments, and should guide and direct everything that we do as we seek to live as little Christs. Love God and love people. Thank you very much. No, wait, there's more. So boundaries are a tool that helps us love God and love people. Boundaries are a way not only to love ourselves and other people, but to love and honor God. God only gives us a limited amount of time, talent, and treasure. And he wants us to be good stewards of it. So today, we're going to look at how Paul collected money for the church in Jerusalem. We're going to look at how you can't resent someone and love them at the same time. And we're going to look at how to set boundaries. Paul had a problem. The church in Jerusalem was experiencing extreme poverty. And the Corinthian church had not only the means, but also the desire to help. So, what's Paul to do? Well, he could have been like the organizations that send you pictures of sad puppy dogs to play on your pity and to get you to open your wallet. Or he could have been like this guy who says, if you send me your money, I promise that God will reward you 100-fold. How about this guy? Operators are standing by, and a pledge at the $200 level gets you this lovely tote as a thank you gift to let all your friends know that you supported the church in Jerusalem. He could have done that, but he doesn't. What does he do instead? Well, he writes a letter, and he says to the Corinthian church, I want you to get your offering ahead of time. Get your offering together ahead of time. So this is from 2 Corinthians 9. I thought it necessary to urge the brothers to visit you in advance to finish the arrangements for the generous gift you had promised. Then it will be ready as a generous gift, not as one grudgingly given. For if the willingness is there, the gift is acceptable, according to what one has, not according to what one does not have. For each of you should give what he has decided in his heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for the Lord loves a cheerful giver. So, Paul is being very clear with what he wants the Corinthian church to do. He's telling them, I want you to get your offering together. I want you to decide in your heart what to give. He's being very clear. And clear is kind. So what does this have to do with boundaries? Well, God only gives you a limited amount of time, talent, and treasure. And he wants you to use that wisely. However, sometimes we're not always very good at knowing when to say yes and when to say no. So I want you to think of a time. Tell me if this has ever happened to you. Somebody asks you to do something, and you say, sure, no problem. And immediately you go, oh, what did I just agree to? You resent them. This is a picture of my inner child when I do this. My stomach drops, and I know that I've made a bad choice. So if that's ever happened to you, I want you to think about that time, okay? So here's an example. Your child's third grade teacher comes to you and says, hey, can you bake and decorate cookies for the party, the Valentine's Day party, on Friday? This is what they look like from last year. And you're like, oh no. Your stomach drops, your armpits start to sweat. The story you make up is, if I don't do this, and the kids don't have any cookies for the party, the teacher will be so disappointed, and so will the kids. And if I don't do this, then that teacher is going to think that I'm a bad parent, and I'm not willing to do my part. And then you think, I've got a lot on my plate, I'm pretty swamped, but I'm pretty sure that I can make this happen. So you say yes, when you really mean no. As soon as you say yes, the resentment kicks in. And you think to yourself, that teacher is always taking advantage of me. He is dumping all this work on me, and he knows how busy that I am, and he knows that I always say yes. And you feel resentment. And then the cookies go out of your mind until Thursday at 11:59, when you suddenly remember that you've got cookies to bake. And you realize you have no baking soda. And so you have to go to Walmart to buy baking soda, because everybody knows that you can't bake cookies without baking soda. And you stay up half the night to bake the cookies, and they end up looking like this. The next morning, you yell at your kids because you stayed up half the night and only got a couple hours of sleep to make these cookies, right? And you get halfway to school and you realize you don't have the cookies. And so you have to go back and get the cookies. And then the kids are late for school and you are late for work. And you feel resentment. You can't resent someone and love them at the same time. Resentment is God's early warning system to let you know that you have not done a good job setting good boundaries. You are responsible to set, communicate, and maintain the boundaries that you need to love people. You are responsible to set, communicate, and maintain the boundaries that you need to love people. You are responsible to set, communicate, and maintain the boundaries that you need to love people. So, is this teacher taking advantage of you? Let's look at it from the other side. The teacher needs to have cookies made for the party, and he asks you. He doesn't know your schedule. He doesn't know your capabilities. He's just asking you if you can do it or not. You are responsible for being honest with yourself first. You've got to know what you can and can't do, given everything else that you have going on. And you have to communicate that clearly. And then you have to be able to tolerate the discomfort that comes from saying, I'm really sorry, I can't. And then you have to be able to tolerate the other person being disappointed. Just because somebody is upset does not mean that you did something wrong. Something that helps me in this situation is to believe that people are doing the best they can. That helps me fight against the bias that says when I do something bad, it's because of my circumstances. But when you do something bad, it's because you are a bad person. So, here's an example. Somebody cuts you off in traffic. If you brand that guy as a selfish jerk that just wants to get ahead, then you are attributing his behavior to his fundamental characteristics. However, if you cut someone off in traffic, not that any of you would ever do that, it's because the kids are arguing in the back seat and you just didn't notice how close you were to the other car. You are attributing your behavior to the circumstances, not to your fundamental traits. So when I believe that people are doing the best they can, it reminds me that it's my responsibility to let them know what's okay and what's not okay. This is where being clear is kind. If you are clear with setting, communicating, and maintaining your boundaries, two things happen. One, other people know how to treat you, right? There's no ambiguity. They know this is cool and this is not cool, right? And second, you know if somebody has violated your boundaries. It's impossible to make the most generous assumption of somebody else's motives when they're hurting you. So it's your responsibility to not let that happen. So, what are the steps to setting good boundaries? Well, first of all, you need to be realistic. You need to be honest, and you need to be conservative. When you agree to do something, it's going to take you longer than you think. When you agree to do something, it is going to take you longer than you think. Don't lie to yourself. Don't say, oh yeah, I can get that done. Be honest with yourself first. Then you need to clearly communicate what you can and can't do. I'm really sorry. I am not able to bake homemade cookies for the party. Would it be okay if I stopped at Walmart and picked up some Loft House cookies instead? And then you need to be able to handle people's bad feelings. Some people will be angry. Some people will be disappointed. Some people will be sad. And you know what? That's okay. Just because somebody's upset does not mean that you did something wrong. So I want you to go back to the example that we talked about at the beginning. When you said yes, when you really meant no. And I want you to imagine how you could have set, communicated, and maintained the boundaries that you needed to love that person. So to recap, boundaries are an act of love. You are responsible for setting, communicating, and maintaining the boundaries that you need to stay out of resentment and to love people. You need to be honest with yourself. Communicate clearly and be okay with other people feeling that. Clear is kind. Now, all of you should have in front of you two little cardstock papers. I want you to find those. One of them says clear is kind on the front and has the steps for setting boundaries in the back. Denny, I think they're on the side here. I don't think that all of them made it all the way over there. And there should be a larger one. Once everybody has them, let me know. Good deal. I want you to take the larger one, and it has two questions on it. One of the questions is, what do you remember? And the other question is, what are you going to do differently? I'd like for you to take a look at both of those and fill them out so that I can collect them after the service. And I'd like you to tuck the little clear is kind in your purse or your wallet. Thank you.